multitasking, getting my daughter, who is in first kindergarten. How old is my daughter? She's in kindergarten. She was listening to Philomena, very frustrated because she is at home and wants to go back. So I was like, okay, mom's not ready to be carting you back and forth when I'm trying to adjust to council. So we're just going to pause on that until next year. So I am new to council, just wanted to come and say hello. I had talking points, and Bob and Beth took all of my exciting news. I was going to tell you about all those things. So really, I'm just here to say hello, and you know, I'm really excited to get more involved as we start to open back up and participate in person and seeing everybody. And the small business community is really special to me. Most of my, you know, community that I had built in Livermore was around small micro, you know, single sole proprietor businesses in Livermore. And I think we see a lot of those blossom and grow into larger companies over time. And so I would love to, you know, have conversations with the chamber and you know, to figure out how we can support those small people starting up, you know, that start as one or two, so we can see them grow and it can see our entire economy thrive. I was also really excited to hear about Hummingbird. I was at an event. The best parts of the job are when you get invited to events where you get to see really cool things before the regular public. And so I got to see an electric tractor with my son with Monarch Tractor, and to hear that Hummingbird is doing the same thing is really exciting to me because, you know, mitigating climate change is at the top of my agenda, you know, and at first when I was running, I was like, what can I do to mitigate climate change as a city council, not realizing that cities actually have a lot of power there. So encouraging development of those companies and bringing them to our community is going to be good for us and good for him, which is why it's important to me. So just here to say hello, give you a little insight. I am a real person. I know I haven't seen anybody in real life because I ran a campaign in COVID. But feel free to email me. It's the same as everybody else. It's our first last name, bkiick@cityoflivermore.net. If you ever want to meet, I'll probably have him in tow, but he thinks it's very fun. Max, would you like to say anything to everybody? Gonna show him your water monster? No? Okay.
It's a shark.
Oh, sorry, it's a shark. They want to say hi. No? All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. There it is. There's his water monster. Shark. Sorry.
It's a shark.
It's a shark. And yeah, excited to be here. I've been welcomed with open arms by my fellow council, and have been learning a ton.
And
so
my sister loves dinosaurs. I do too. So my mom bought me and Clara Play-Doh, and her bought me my own Megalodon.
That's it's a Megalodon, which is a prehistoric underwater creature because they love dinosaurs. So any dinosaur programming, let us know. Thanks for having me this morning.
Great. Good morning. And I think Councilmember Kiick is representative of so many women in the workplace right now who are multitasking. So chairs, we just saw it right there. Awesome. So thank you so much for that. And thanks for being available. And thanks so much for supporting, you know, businesses like Hummingbird and everyone else in the Tri-Valley community. So now we're going to go ahead and move on. Where's Dennis? Dennis, are you ready? Here we are. So timely, right? I feel like it's been all over the news. I don't know, up here in Contra, Costa, can't even tell you how many little fires and all that other stuff. So it is truly a hot topic. I don't mean to say that, but let's go, Dennis. Let's go ahead and get a water agency update, please.
So can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I've accomplished half of what I wanted to do now. So let's see. Now I'm trying to get it on the, there we go. first of all, thank you for inviting me. Happy Cinco de Mayo. And this, of course, is Water Awareness Month. So I'm currently a director at Zone 7. I'm a civil engineer. Before I got elected and took a big pay cut, I was an employee for 34 years. And so I had an opportunity to do, as a water resource manager, do a lot of different roles in water and flood. So this morning, what I want to cover is Zone 7's roots and water supply and delivery, kind of a abbreviated version of Water Supply 101. And with that, I want that to help us discuss, or you to understand, the water supply challenges and the water supply reliability projects. And then I'm just going to touch on this year's water deliveries. So I'm gonna mute that. Okay, so this is a map which really is of Alameda County. It's also the Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. Zone 7 is a huge portion of that. As you can see, basically Eastern Alameda County had got to be close to half. So the enabling legislation that created this was called the District Act, and was passed by the legislature in 1949. So this District Act also allowed for the establishment of zones. So each zone had to vote to become part of the active part of the flood control district. And Zone 7 was formed in 1957. And that act, so Zone 7 is unique in a couple of ways. First of all, it's the only zone that has its own elected board, and it's the only zone that's involved in water. So I'm gonna take a second here. In any case, we pretty much semi-autonomous from the county in terms of our governance, and also we are really known as Zone 7 Water Agency because Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District is just too long. And so why were we formed? Well, a big reason was the need for new water. The groundwater basin was in overdraft. In fact, it was approaching historic lows. Then there was limited supply for water for new growth and ag. And at the same time, the state water project was being formed. And so Zone 7 entered into contract with the California Department of Water Resources in 1961. So you might recognize this guy here, Governor Brown, Edmund G. And this is another guy that you probably heard of. You didn't recognize him. That's Carl Wente. He was on the first Zone 7 board, and he was the first chairman of the Zone 7 board. So this map here I like because it really gives you a sense of what the state water project is, its locations. So these are the entities and the locations that are served. So 29 contractors. I would say, yeah, most of them are in Southern California, more than half. So just to go through them, Kern County is here, and they're both ag and M&I. The largest contractor is the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and that covers the areas including Los Angeles and San Diego counties, and they represent over half of the project. Then I got a phone call, spam, turned it off, okay. Then a little closer to home, you've got the Zone 7 with the Alameda County Water District and the Santa Clara Valley Water District. They're all what we call our South Bay Aqueduct partners. So I just want to point out that you've got a number of water agencies in Northern California, including these North Bay and these counties near Folsom, near Oroville. And just another frame of reference is Zone 7 is 2% of the state water project. So now I want to just kind of go over the system. So Zone 7's allocation is known as Table A, and it's delivered, and so it delivers, the system delivers that, and we also can use it for transfers. But just to kind of go over the facilities, the mother facility, so to speak, is Oroville Reservoir. It's on the Feather River. That collects our water, and really our water rights, because the water goes down the Sacramento River derived from that water there, but it gets commingled with other waters and certainly the Delta. And then the main feature, I guess, is also the California Aqueduct that delivers water from the Delta. It feeds the South Bay Aqueduct in Zone 7, and then it goes down to California, to Southern California. Oroville Reservoir covered. South Bay Lake Del Val is off the South Bay Aqueduct. It's kind of part of the South Bay Aqueduct, in that it feeds the water there in the summer to meet peak demands. San Luis Reservoir is another place that Zone 7 can store water that it doesn't need in, doesn't have to use for that year, and you can use it later. And another feature this map shows, more than anything, is not really part of the South State Water Project system, but our groundwater banks in Kern County are located here. And so we store water there, but we get water from there in a sense through a credit or exchange. So the state delivers water to us, and then that water that would have, it would not then go to the agencies that we get it from down there. So it's just an exchange. So what are our water supply sources? So 70% is imported from the State Water Project via the Delta. In any given year, we may be storing water. We're not really storing water this year. I don't believe that. In years that are wet or even normal, sometimes we store water in our local groundwater basin, San Luis Reservoir, which you saw, and the Kern County groundwater banks. And then another piece of our puzzle here for the water sources is the local supplies. And not quite exactly a third, but Oriole Val water rights on the Del Val, about 10%. The groundwater yield from the main basin, which in essence belongs to the retailers who pump that. And then there's also from the retailers, or at least the cities of Pleasanton, Livermore, and Dublin, San Ramon, is the recycled irrigation water. So we have 4 main retailers: Cal Water Service companies, City of Livermore, both serving Livermore, and they're roughly about the same size. City of Pleasanton is the largest retailer, and then Dublin, San Ramon, they serve Dublin and the Doherty Valley area of San Ramon. And then untreated water customers, about 10% of our deliveries. Let's see. I want to, the green area represents mostly vineyards. That's the property irrigated. The 2 largest, the largest, I guess, customer is Wente. If Charles is not asleep, I would point out Olivina, so we do have olive trees there. So Zone 7 facilities. So off of the South Bay Aqueduct, we have a couple of treatment plants to feed the transmission system. Off of the transmission system, there's connections to the retailer systems. And then we have wells that also fill the pipeline from groundwater that's stored in the groundwater basin. So what are our challenges? We have decreasing state water project deliveries, climate change or global warming, which is going to lead to extreme hydrology. So it's going to cause higher delta water levels, and that's going to result in salt water intrusion, less snowpack storage. So a lot of the storage that you have, you're losing because you're going to get precipitation as water. So you're going to have to capture it to make up for the loss of the snowpack and other facilities. And then you just have increased variability of seasonal weather and storm intensities. And so the modeling is pretty confident this is going to happen, but until it plays out, you don't know quite how much or extreme those storms might be. Then another concern is the Delta levee failures. It's a kind of a ticking time bomb there. Those things, some of them levees were built in the 1800s, so they're susceptible to failure, especially from seismic events. And then we'll have a new customer base over the next, so build out that will need new water. So talking about the decreasing state water project yield, our table amount is 8.6 thousand acre feet. Sorry for the abbreviations there, but I put it down there, 1,000 acre feet. So that over time, that yield has been lowered. You know, it just says environmental regulations, you know, but you know, to meet environmental needs, one way to say it too, court decisions, lawsuits. But in any case, what's real is the yield that facilities were built to distribute are not going to be able to deliver the full entitlement that from our table A. So from our perspective, we had an adjustment in 76% in 1998. And a lot of our planning for the purchases of new water at that time was based on that 76%. It was downgraded to 60% in 2007. And if a Delta Conveyance project or something else isn't done, and I don't know what that else would be, they expect that could go to 50% of the table A. And I put 12.9 thousand acre foot decrease there because that's the difference between what we were planning essentially to have to what we've lost. So this is just a list of the projects. I'm going to go into them in a little more detail. The first four of these are the oranges, and water transfers is the apple, so to speak, because these are projects: Sites Reservoir, Los Vaqueros Reservoir Expansion, Delta Conveyance, which is would be a state water project facility, and potable reuse, a local project. The short-term water, the water transfers will be short-term in that we're hoping that by the time these projects are built, we won't need water transfers because water transfer monies are very expensive. You buy them on spot markets in dry years, and you really don't know what the cost are. I think that we're buying some this year that are 4 to 6 times the cost of our normal water costs anyway. So Sites has a yield of 10,000 acre feet. Los Vaqueros doesn't have storage, but it allows us to store water. And also, importantly, it gives us a conveyance system to take winter water, let's say, from the Delta. And at this point, we don't know what the Delta conveyance would be. I'll talk a little more about that later. And then we have potable reuse, which is, I think, a little less specific now on how much we need from there. But these projects would be almost 10 years out and more in the case of Delta Conveyance. So Sites Reservoir is, okay. Sites Reservoir, it's new off-river storage, captures flows from the Sacramento River. So the water would go from the Sacramento River over here to the reservoir that would be built. And so this is designed to deliver dry year and drought year water. So it's meant to complement the state water project. And it has support from the state, and it has grant funding in addition to what the members would have to pay. We're currently working on environmental permits, water rights applications, and doing some engineering. Sice Reservoir. So Sice Reservoir, and that's it. Los Vaqueros Reservoir, located between Livermore and Brentwood. It's existing, of course, and it would raise the level of the existing dam. It provides increased storage, which would be allocated to the customers. And then it would install new conveyance facilities at the Delta and the State Water Project. And hopefully we get better water when we use that, because it's designed also to, with all the connections to the Delta, get wet weather flows. So they're currently developing a joint powers authority. This facility is owned now by the Contra Costa Water District. The plan is that a JPA of the members would then, in the future, govern the reservoir. And then they're working on permits and preliminary design. So Delta Conveyance Project. So that's a single tunnel that would be under the Delta. So it would connect up at the Sacramento River, go into the Delta. They're studying a couple of alignments, and then connect to the California Aqueduct. So this would, stated purpose from the Department of Water Resources to restore and protect the reliability of state water project water deliveries. And this would address the sea level rising due to climate change. So you could take water that's maybe 15 feet higher, I've heard, and get it to the state water project system. Then, because you'd have the water in tunnels, the Delta levees failures would not affect our deliveries. And it provides operational flexibility, and it says to improve water aquatic conditions. But what I'm hoping is that really means that it would also do all it could to help protect the Delta ecosystem. And this project is currently undergoing CEQA project development. So at this point, we're not sure what the plan, if it's just planned to keep or maintain our 60% of our table A, or if we get any more water out of it. So there's some unanswered questions currently with this project. So the last project, potable reuse, and it's local wastewater treated to drinking water standards. So the effluent from the wastewater that's treated wastewater would go through some process. And I put all these acronyms here that I know that just roll off everybody's tongue, but there will be no test at the end of this. So ultrafiltration, RO, reverse osmosis, granular activated carbon, and then you get into disinfection with ultraviolet, and then there's storage buffers so that you can make sure that the water meets those standards before it would be used directly, or what I would prefer in this project is storing it in the chain of lakes or the groundwater basin as another buffer. So the project, the cost and public acceptance are identified concerns still, and this project is still under development. Okay, so in summary, we're going to need additional water supplies to accommodate the reduced reliability, water supplies, and growth. Basically, those projects are intended to meet the challenges we have. So, we've got multiple projects to do that. Over the next few years, there's going to be several decision points on the project, and primarily what these are is approval of phases of the projects where Zone 7 has to commit to payments, and I certainly will keep this group apprised at those times and meetings that the Zone 7 has to make those decisions. Now, switching quickly just to this year, as you know, it's a dry year, it's a classified as a critically dry year, and it follows the dry year from last year. And so our allocations are only 5% of our table A. So Zone 7 has requested voluntary reductions in water usage, and Zone 7 is purchasing water supplies or water transfers to meet this year's demands, possibly next year's. But the demands are also going to be supplied from storage in the local groundwater basin, pumping wells, and current county groundwater bank through exchanges. And so I would be happy to answer any questions. I'm trying to stop share. I have been so this is the first time I've got to see you guys since that presentation. That is a terrible experience, just to be talking to a screen and not seeing anybody. So I'm going to be glad when this we can get out of the Zoom world. So, I would, with that, I can put my contact information in chat, because really what I want to do is get any feedback from you guys. That's my role as a board member. But I think there's time for a question or two, right, Don?
We have some hands that are raised here. I'm not sure who's first, but Bob Warner, Mayor Warner.
Oh, I'll let John go first. He's the
Okay.
expert here.
John Marchand.
Okay.
Surprise.
This is my life. So you mentioned the loss of 12.9 thousand acre feet in capacity or conveyance capacity in 1998. And I think it's very important that everybody understands what happened, because the zone set, because I got a lot of complaints about the cost of fees, development fees for new development. And this, I think, is very important, because Zone 7 ultimately spent about $200 million in enlarging the capacity for the South Bay Aqueduct. Because, as you pointed out, Lake Del Valle was created so we had capacity for peaking during the summertime. Well, then the temporary facilities, recreational facilities that were put into Lake Del Valle caused Zone 7 to lose that 12.9 thousand acre feet of capacity in Lake Del Valle. So Zone 7 had to spend about $200 million to put rails on the aqueduct to reclaim that capacity.
So we have built capacity in the aqueduct, and then at the same time, with the decrease in the State Water Project allocations, now we have an effect. We wouldn't be using that capacity unless we get more water. And
Right.
The project that gets us the more water is really Sites Reservoir. I put that first only because I thought that was, from a standpoint of personally me as one board member, made the most sense as a project
Sure.
on that list, because you're paying for facilities that you built and you're not getting any return on it unless you get some more water.
Right. But the fact that Zone 7 lost that capacity because the temporary facilities at Lake Del Valle were made permanent, and we could no longer draw that down during the summertime, because they don't draw it down until after Labor Day. So it shows that Zone 7 had made all these plans, and then the state changed the rules. So you guys are doing a great job. Just wanted to point that out.
You know, you bring up the point that my perspective is, initially as a young guy coming into this, is that you make your plans and your project and you count on something certain for the future. And what you've seen in the water world is you can't really count on certainty. And so you've got the environment, no pun intended, where there's going to be competition between the water, you know, used by environmental versus and the ag and the new growth that we have, which is only going to continue. It's possible we even get further decreases in allocations. That's a real competition. So my concern is the goalpost will always move, and we've always got to be ready with something in the hopper to do to minimize our cost and provide the water for our customers.
It's a very fluid environment.
Okay.
Okay. Bob?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just was trying to figure out how to summarize what you said with respect, especially the need for the tunnel project in the Delta, because that has the environmental impact. And if you look at what you said for this year and possibly next, we've got the storage. So how do you simply state the need for the tunnel project? And is it because we have the variability and we're not going to be able to store enough locally to cover us in the lean years? Or how do you, what's the 2 or 3 sentences that says you got to have the tunnel, given the fact that we're going to survive this year and next and we don't have the tunnel? So how do you explain that to people succinctly?
I'm going to say the first thing is that without a tunnel, the estimated state water project allocation drops to 50%. So 60% to 50%. So that's, if you look at that, I don't know how many thousands of acre feet is, but then you would have to make that up in some way. So we have, so first of all, that's the estimated loss. Now, if you want to know the specifics of how they got to that estimate, I would
no, I was saying is that just conceptually, the point is we can't store enough locally to make up for some of these other years, the dry years. So we need to have that access to that tunnel to sort of accommodate the future growth and things, because right now we're going to manage through it, but there's a limited number of years in which we can deal with a sustained drought. So is that kind of the concept? We don't have enough storage locally to take us through a number of years, so therefore we need the tunnel. I mean, what's the 2 or 3 sentences that says,
well,
right now we're kind of surviving without the tunnel, but we need the tunnel in the future
because regulations are the amount. So I'm not sure. Maybe Valerie's going to say. Valerie may need to help me out. Our general manager is here, but storage helps us get wet year water or abundant water. Will that help? That will. But if you don't have the tunnel, you're going to be using water that has a higher salt content, and you end up with a water quality issue also. So it's water quality is, you can think of it as helping us from the standpoint of water quality. You're getting water in the Sacramento River rather than sucking out of the end of the Delta. And I'm not sure what sea level rise is going to be, 6 feet or whatever. Nobody disputes that that's going to happen. I don't, we can talk about how fast, but if you don't have a tunnel, you're going to have a water quality problem. And Valerie, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you just real quick, I think you're getting to, I was just after the elevator pitch, and I think you're putting in the other mix in there that I can't remember in your presentation whether you said it or not, but what's the key issue that takes us to the tunnel? And so I can believe it's the water quality. But go ahead, I'd like to hear Valerie.
Good morning. Yeah, I will add a few things about the Delta Conveyance Tunnel project. First of all, as Director Gambs said, this is a critically dry year and we're planning to make it through this year, but it's a lot of coordination with DWR statewide to do it. If there was a tunnel, it'd be easier to do. If there's another dry year next year, things could be worse. So that's the current situation. I think a few keys about the tunnel project is, first of all, it is going to be insurance against something catastrophic like an earthquake or delta levee failures. So if there were earthquake or delta levee failures now, and the delta flooded with salt water, it could be a year or two before we had access. So the tunnel would be a way to bypass the salty delta. Then it's also climate change in two respects. One is we're expecting, drier dries and wetter wets and less snowpack. So there can be winter storms, which are generating a lot of water, which we would not be able to access without a tunnel. So even though we don't have local storage in the future, we would still be able to capture those winter storms and store, in some of our local storage, groundwater basin or chain of lakes, but even, our groundwater banks in Kern County. Right now, we can't do that. And the other aspect is sea level rise. So we get our water directly from the South Delta. That's where the intakes are. And projections are that there'll be at least 3 feet of sea level rise in the next, 50 years. So that could mean that there could be weeks or months when we cannot pump through the South Delta at all because the water is too salty. So a tunnel will allow us to bypass that. So those are some of the keys.
Okay, thank you. So I take it the alternative on the quality issue would be to somehow put in the treatment plants, and I take it that's not feasible with respect to cost or any other technical issues.
Right. I don't, the state is not planning on any, reverse osmosis plants to remove, the salts as they come through the Delta. And, that would be cost prohibitive for Zone 7. We wouldn't have access to any facilities between here and the Delta.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have 3 hands that are up. People are waiting. So in order of, I think, people who put their hands up, we have Councilmember Kiick, Michael Roberts, and Philomena. So, Brittni?
Oh, sure. I just was going to say that this is interesting to me. If any of you saw me on the campaign, you know that I knew nothing and I like to learn. So this is interesting to me, and I appreciate this. I think storytelling matters, and something that I think, you could add to this conversation for people that are really green in this area would be the fact that, like, the reality is that the places that we play, that I have memories playing in the Feather River, and my children have memories playing at Del Val. What we take for granted as recreation in California is actually water we use for our lives and livelihood. So, making that really clear to people who have no clue about where water comes from, I think is important to get that message across. That this is valuable, this is important. Those memories that you take for granted are actually, impacting our water. And that's the message that I took away from that. So if that's helpful, I just wanted to share.
Thank you. It's always good to get feedback from a councilman.
Michael Roberts.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So my question is along the lines of green. So we're going to have this tunnel, which I really am a fan of, actually. I think it's a great idea because the levees are a mess in the Delta. Are any plans being made to electrify them in terms of, are they going to be able to provide electricity? Are they putting rotors into them so when water's going through them, they can provide electricity for the state, which is something that we need, and it would be low cost, I would venture to guess, over the long term. Any feedback on that?
So if you were to put something in the tunnels that would take away from the head, the push on it, you would reduce its capacity. And so I don't think that that would be something that would be considered seriously. There just isn't a lot of fall ahead. So it isn't really a candidate for that. And then when it gets to the south end, it has to get pumped up. So, just, we had 2 tunnels with Governor Brown. Now with Governor Newsom, it's 1 tunnel. So that's probably a cost prohibitive problem.
Philomena, and then we have a few questions in the chat.
Thank you, Dennis. Great presentation, really informative and very interesting. And my question is, how is that network of pipes maintained that you showed us on those maps? You know, pipe water going all over the state. How are those pipes maintained?
So the state water project is maintained by the Department of Water Resources. So things like Oroville Dam, California Aqueduct, if there's a Delta conveyance system, that would be maintained by them, but it's paid for by the state water contractors. None of this is subsidized. This is the state system. It's not the federal system, so that we do pay the maintenance for all those facilities.
If I could, though, I'm curious, like, how are they maintained? Are people proactive? I'm just thinking, if something, you know, if you get a leak, how do you deal with that? So,
you know, one example is there was a facility that was damaged between Del Val and where it connects to the South Bay Aqueduct. It's basically a giant relief valve, the tower. It was millions and millions of dollars. So that was kind of a project where it wasn't normal maintenance. And so the Department of Water Resources fixed that project and put out the contracts to do it. And then probably through the bonds that we pay off, I think probably refinanced or somehow put it into our payments that way. So there's an ability to do that with the Department of Water Resources. And then they have people that maintain things on an ongoing basis. Pumps are probably one of the things that I come to mind as something that need more ongoing effort. And then, you know, you're going to have replacements of major facilities or rehabilitations. For instance, the California Aqueduct has some issues on some of those canals that don't affect us now. They affect Southern California deliveries. And so that's just going to fall on the people who pay, the contractors who benefit from that will pay for those repairs.
That's a good question, Philomena. And, you know, I recall when up at Lake Oroville and there was that breach in one of the overflow structures occurred some years ago, and they had to evacuate the town of Oroville because, you know, it would flood the entire town. There's a question in people's minds as to what the state is doing as far as maintaining its facilities in general, and for sure with our water system. So hopefully that is on the radar, or it's a little higher priority for the state than it may have been in the past.
Yes, I can briefly address that. Certainly with dam safety after the Oroville spillway incident, the DWR started on a pretty intense review of all of their dam and spillway facilities, and they're working on the high priority ones. The good news for us is there's no significant issues at Del Val, and that's on the low priority list. And then the State Water Project is getting older. And so DWR recognizes that, and they've started a pretty intense asset management program, inventory of the facilities, and determining a risk-based maintenance program. And they will, over the next 5 years, be adding significant new resources from a maintenance perspective. And more near and dear to us, the South Bay Aqueduct, we have a specialized team with DWR working on what we call the South Bay Aqueduct reliability improvements. So there's a constant set of inspections and then short-term, medium-term, and long-term work. So been very responsive to the South Bay Aqueduct contractors.
And I see we had a question in the chat here about, are there any plans to partner with some of the water agencies close to us? East Bay Med, it serves most Alameda County cities and portions of Contra Costa County cities, and San Francisco Water. And Valerie, thank you for your response in the chat on that you are pursuing exchanges with state water contractors. They're easiest because they are within the same system that Zone 7 operates in, and you're open to other exchanges as well. And then another question or comment, Dennis, conservation is a two-edged sword, good for preserving water, bad for your budget. How do you balance the two competing interests?
So is that on the chat?
It is in the chat, but it was just sent to me.
Can you say that again? Then I was looking at you.
Yeah, conservation is a two-edged sword, good for preserving water, bad for your budget. How do you balance the two competing interests?
Well, I'll take a stab at that first. I think that I'm going to use the word balance, but I'm going to say what we do is we earmark some of the revenues from water rates to contingency funds. And so when you get less revenues than you budgeted for, you can use that loss, the contingency fund, to offset your loss. I think that, it's even kind of a balance this year. We have enough water to meet our demands, but if we save water, we can reduce our cost on purchasing expensive water next year, should there be another drought. But I think that what we learned from the last drought situation is that we have a larger contingency fund to smooth things out, so that the year after that, we don't have to look at raising the rates. Valerie, you want to add anything to that?
I think you summarized that well, but we've done conservative budget estimates on revenues, and we do recover about 40% of our revenue as fixed charges, because in the water world, about 80% of our costs are fixed. They don't vary with the amount of water. So we feel we have the right financial structure to withstand droughts. And, sure, we sell water, but, we like to think of ourselves as a resource agency. So, we do provide water supply, but it's not selling water at all costs. So as Dennis said, we've got the financial structure, we have sufficient reserves. And then in dry years, water is more expensive. So conserving actually helps us to save money.
So I think that's it on the questions. I do have one, Dennis, in one of your slides, you did mention that the zone is asking for voluntary water reductions. So we would be interested in seeing how that trickles down through the retailers to the users and what those impacts will be to us. Is there goals, 10%, 25%, or just conserve? Will there be programs that the water agencies and utilities roll out to connect with our businesses to help them ensure that they do implement water conserving equipment if they have not already done so, or maybe there's even newer technology? What does this mean? Voluntary.
Well, I'm going to take a stab at that. By virtue of it being voluntary, there are no specific goals set, I think. And even though we requested voluntary reductions, and while I've been at Zone 7, every time there's dry or drought years, the public already cuts back. They know that. And even if we wanted to budget so that, or told them to use their water, it isn't going to work. People are responsible in a sense. So that we haven't got to the point where we think we need to give them any targets. So with that, so Valerie, who's the day-to-day person, can add this, maybe.
Right. I can add that, at this point, we're, discussing the extreme drought conditions, and we'd like people to voluntarily conserve. In the past, when we've asked customers to conserve, they have come through. So at this point, we're not recommending mandatory conservation. We are working with the retailers, and we will roll out a Tri-Valley plan by the end of this month, May's Water Awareness Month. So I'll give you a preview that we will likely be requesting 10% voluntary conservation. It'll be a coordinated message, And we will also at the same time be highlighting the various rebate programs we have to assist people with water saving devices.
I'm glad that Mary updated our voluntary, so thanks.
Okay, and then I see there was one question in the chat here. I know we're getting short on time. Any news that algae upstream is going to cause any issues with water quality this year? And John Marchand, for those of you who don't know, served on the Zone 7 Water Board for many, many years, and his background is in water chemistry. Algae tastes and odors will not be as great this year since Zone 7 added ozone treatment to their treatment plants.
So that's true if you get your water from Del Val Water Treatment Plant. So Patterson Pass, which supplies my water, won't be completed till about 2 years. But it's a really good point. Ozone treats algae or disinfects, and it doesn't add the aftertaste you get from the chloramines, which we now use at Patterson only, when it mixes with algae, it just results in a taste. So, and then a complication that John could talk about for hours, we have to also add a residual in the system to keep the disinfection system disinfected. And so there'll still be some chloramines in it, but I'm looking forward to all the ozone being treated. And I think that if you also, one of the things that the Delta Conveyance project would do, it would give us better source water. Though there wouldn't be, if it comes from the Sacramento River, you aren't going to be getting as much algae as you would when you pump it out of the south part of the Delta.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you for that. And I think if anyone, we should talk to John about having a doctor water chemistry lesson at another time. That was great, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Valerie. Nice job on I feel very up to speed. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's like, okay, we're good. Heard about it all week, and now we know exactly what's going on with Zone 7. And thank you also, Mayor Warner, for kind of requesting those elevator, right? We all like those elevator. I think because particularly we were talking to our communities and talking to everybody else, and it's just like, I just need you to get there, right? I just need those 3 bullet points to get there. So with that, I think this is it for our May Business Alliance meeting. Our next meeting, Wednesday,